Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm your host, Irina Cismas, and today I'm joined by Ellen Quirke, Head of Customer Success at Iris Audio, a company that helps teams capture and analyze open conversation using AI. Ellen, I'm really happy to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, no, thanks for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation. It'll be good.
Let's start at the beginning. Before customer success and fast, you were a high performance athlete. How did you get pulled into CS and what made it feel like the right place?
Yeah, all the way up until I was 22, I was a swimmer my entire life. So I was on the New Zealand national swim team, and I also went over to Texas A&M on scholarship and was on the swim team there as well. So it had this identity as a swimmer, and I absolutely loved it. And alongside that, also studied exercise science. So did my bachelor's in exercise science and then my master's as well. And off the back of that, I was offered to do my PhD, and I was in this process of getting funding for my PhD in exercise science as well. And I had this light bulb moment of, am I good at anything else? I've never tried anything else outside of sport. It's always been like so integral to who I am. And as soon as that thought was in my head, I couldn't quite shake it and was really curious as to what else in the world that I would be good at and what I would enjoy. My mum's worked in tech her entire life. She's a product manager. So I was already adjacent to the world. She would have loved for me to be a product manager as well. I think she thinks I'd be pretty good at it. But I found a job listing that was the most eclectic job posting and job description I've ever read that said nothing about what I would do and just everything about this is who I want as a person to work for me. Applied for the job, got a phone call within 30 minutes and was offered the job the next day. And that set up 5 years, basically building my career in customer success with a startup in New Zealand.
That's an interesting journey. And I tend to somehow agree with your mom, even though I don't know it. Being a good CS person actually makes you a very good product manager. If you ask me, it's one of the skills that the PMs should have: talking with customer, understanding, being empathic. Yeah, you should try it at some point.
Sure I will. Sure I will.
But staying on the customer success part of things, for people who don't know Iris Audio yet, can you give us a quick snapshot? Who do you serve and where does CS fit into the business today?
Yeah, Iris Audio is an AI audio company, and we basically remove background noise. We've got software that removes background noise and amplifies and enhances the quality of the audio or the voice that comes through. I wish I could probably give a quick demo now. I could turn on my washing machine and turn off the app, be able to hear it spinning, and I'd turn it back on and you wouldn't be able to hear it at all. It's quite amazing. But we exist in a few different markets. Customer success right now sits on the CX side of the business. So we serve a lot of BPOs, call centers, that kind of industry, because obviously call center floors, you've ever called up a call center before and hear all the conversation happening on around the background.
Yes, but yeah, you are right.
Yeah. And then also working from home, or people like being able to definitely, there was a rise via COVID where you could hear dogs barking, you could hear whatever else, and people didn't like that. So yeah, those are the customers we serve today. And we're growing into the other side of the business, which I don't currently sit on, but which is more of mission critical space. So looking at emergency services and aviation and defense and being able to implement our software via physical form. So on a chip, essentially, into comms devices. So really diverse. It's exciting. It's a really exciting company to be a part of.
And what does your day-to-day actually look like as head of CS now?
Yeah, I mean, you could ask any head of CS, and I'm sure all of our day-to-days would look so different.
Of course. This is why I start with this, because your day is definitely different by another head of CS. And
Yeah.
usually CS means different things in different organizations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I was actually brought on 8 months ago as the first person to build out CS within Iris. So there was no CS function that existed before I was hired, which for me, that was something that was really exciting because it means that I get to kind of shape what that looks like. So yeah, my day to day, I do anything from obviously taking some of our bigger clients, our enterprise clients, through onboarding, starting to build out some of our digital CS functions. So whether that's looking at filming some webinars or whatever else that is, sometimes jumping on frontline support over this Christmas break. I'm on a roster doing frontline support, sitting in on product meetings, so our roadmap meetings, and helping bring the customer voice into that. And then a lot of revenue ops stuff as well. Frankly, at the moment, I run a lot of our CRM side of things. So helping build dashboards and everything else for our execs and for our board. Yeah, no 2 days are the same at the moment. It's what needs to be done gets done, or it gets added to the list and hopefully gets done the next week if I run out of time.
You mentioned before we went on record that you are starting to build the foundation of a future CS team. What do you have in mind in terms of structure? What is your ideal CS
Yeah.
setup? Tell me about how are you actually going to build the whole thing?
Yeah, because I think it's interesting that coming into Iris, obviously they identified the fact that they needed someone in CS in the business. It was actually our VP of sales, Chris, who was advocating for 2 years to bring in someone in CS into the business. So he was very stoked when he finally was given the green light to hire someone. But I think very quickly it was realized that what you said before, everyone's got this different interpretation of what customer success is and how it exists within a business. And then also whoever is fulfilling that function, how you see it and how you do it differently. So I think my first kind of path within Iris has been almost bringing people along on the journey to get them to understand the way that I see customer success and the way that I think that it can fit into the business that we have. And it's more than just being an account manager and make sure that people are happy and checks in with customers. It's a lot more nuanced than that, and there's a lot more that goes into it, and a lot more impact you can have as well. More being able to help grow accounts or identify really cool new features that you might not ever have thought of yourself. So for me, in terms of my structure and the way that our business runs as well, there's two really important roles that we've been looking for. And I think it comes into that digital CS space. So it's being able to help support our long tail, just to make sure that we're able to give educational material and support to more customers that maybe are on a lower ARR value, and we can but make sure they're still really wrapped and feel supported and feel heard, and not just talking to a chatbot. That's really important to us. And then another one of that too is then having CSMs that exist within different regions, because with time zones, we're a global company. It's really difficult right now for me managing some of these accounts with the time differences to actually when I need to be there. So being able to bring people in for some of our enterprise accounts in some of our different regions. And that's where I'm looking at starting.
What would be your first follow?
This is an ongoing conversation at the moment in terms of what the importance is with my executive team. And I'm still tossing up between two. I'm having conversations with different people, and lots of different people have different opinions. And any comments on this as well, people give me advice. I think if I think about it from a personal perspective, freeing up my time would be hiring another CSM. About it, the biggest impact that it can have on the business and the way we can support our customers in 2026, I think it would be someone to be able to build out the digital success side and the digital CS customer support kind of function a little bit more. Yeah, that's probably the way it'll go, I think, first.
I'm super curious because now you are the only person in CS, and I assume that you do have a lot on your plate. So, what do you personally focus on first when everything feels urgent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes it's not always the best answer for it. I think it's prioritizing A, who's asking, and then B, who it impacts, right? The two things that go through my head. So obviously the who's asking, if I'm getting a request for a report that needs to be generated from an exec that has to go to the board, then and it has to be done by tomorrow, then everything else has to stop and that has to be done. So that gets prioritized straight away. But afterwards, I think it's more looking at am I the only one that's capable of doing this, right? Because when you're in the success space, as you are involved in support and you are involved with the product team and you are involved with marketing and you are involved with sales, and you become a little bit of a center point for lots of different conversations. And so I think sometimes I have to take a step back and go, am I the best person to be doing this? Or does someone else have the skill set and the ability to do this thing that can get to it a lot sooner than I can? Because if other things come up that are urgent, I need to be able to focus my skill set and my time, my priorities there. But you don't want to let anything go.
Listening to you, there's a lot of, I would say, discipline and clarity in how you approach those moments. And that makes me think about your athlete background again. And I'm curious how much of that athlete mindset still shows up in your work. What habits or ways of thinking from competitive sport have translated well into that customer success part?
Yeah, I'm sure it shows up every day and in ways that I'm not really conscious of. I'm sure because it's been my entire life up until my professional life was sports and high performance sports. I think time management, and I think sometimes it's a bit of a cop out answer because it's one of those like easy things to put on a resume and whatever else. But I think time management is probably one that is so ingrained in me that I would never be able to remove. Being able to like prioritize things and block my time really well to make sure I can get things done that have to get done. I would definitely say that's up there. Discipline, you mentioned it, but yeah, being able to be disciplined and work on things. And I think yeah, it's being able to block out the noise. And I think that's probably something
Mhm.
that's most unique is it doesn't matter what's going on in your personal life or other things that are happening around you, the ability to like narrow in and block out the noise and focus on what has to happen at work that day. And then vice versa, also being able to obviously still stay tapped into the things that are important when you're outside of work. Because for me, my brain's always on with work, but being able to know what to let in and what not when you are taking the break and when you are trying to recharge. Yeah, being able to balance those things, I think, is something that's quite unique. Yeah, and I suppose there's the one more thing. It's like the little 1%. So I know this is more about like unique to customer success and like working in technology and working with people is finding like the little 1% improvements or the little things that'll make a big difference. And I think this is why I got into sport and exercise science as well and found that really fascinating. I ended up studying it because I wanted to know how I could be a better athlete. Because that was the only reason that's what I'm going to study at university, because I was thinking that there are little things that I can change in my diet or little angles I can change in how I'm swimming that can make me better. And so it's finding those little 1% changes. And I think you can have conversations with customers and they might mention a little thing that they don't even think is big. It's just this, oh, this happens and then we experience this or whatever else. And being able to take that little nugget and spin it up into something else, get it, whether it's a process change, whether it's a new feature, whatever it is, and being able to present that back to the customer that solves this little problem or this little idea that they had, and being able to see the delight because they never asked for it, but you're waiting and recognize it as this little thing. Sometimes they don't even know that they were the ones that sparked the idea through the conversation. And it's, oh, remember, we were talking about it a few weeks ago and here it is. Yeah, I think that's something that I credit to being an athlete as well. Those little 1%.
Let's talk about how you measure success. And I know that you've driven retention, expansion, CSAT results across different roles. When you strip it all back, which outcomes do you care about most and which ones tend to be overrated?
Yeah, this is something that's really relevant to me at the moment because we're trying to define what metrics we're measuring at what levels and what we're rolling up to different levels as we're presenting them. And for me, the biggest thing is context. I think a lot of the time people want to know a number, want to know a figure, and that's important. But a number without context is useless a lot of the time. You think about things like churn, and you could have a bigger churn number, but with context around that, it might not be as like as scary of a number as what it is presenting on the page. Same thing with expansion, right? So I think what we kind of measure is looking at our NRR. We don't measure an NPS or a CSAT at the moment, and we're tossing up about whether to use them or not. Right now, we're going a bit more anecdotal and obviously measuring churn and GRR as well. I think it's something that I'm continuing to try and learn more about at the moment. And yeah, how can we make sure that we're presenting the right information? Because I don't want to rush it. Because the other thing is having accurate data. And one of the biggest things I've been focused on since I've joined Iris has been making sure that the data that we have is accurate and true to the story. Because I don't want to start reporting on metrics that are inaccurate because the data that sits behind them is false or is missing certain aspects. So that's been something too that I've had to slow down the reporting of certain things until we can get the data correct. So I don't think any metric is necessarily useless. There's just context and accuracy. It has to go alongside it.
I want to talk about those outcomes. As you said, some of them were. It's not about how important. In some cases, all of them are, and it all depends on the context. But those are outcomes, and they don't happen in isolation, and they are driven by the people doing the work. And I know that you've managed and you've coached CS teams directly. What do new CS leaders usually underestimate when it comes to supporting and developing their teams?
Yeah, so I think in the past, so I've had a few people that I've supported and managed through my CS career, but I think my biggest experience in helping grow and cultivate people and manage teams has actually been through previous work. I owned a sim school for a number of years back in New Zealand and built a team of learner sim instructors and that had never taught swimming before. And so I think I learned a lot of my kind of like leadership and management and skill development in that scenario because I was really skilled and experienced myself. And I think the biggest thing is taking the time and patience to bring people on the journey with you and listening to others' perspectives, no matter how much you think, because everyone has come from a different background or heard different anecdotes, heard different stories, been taught by different people, been
Mhm.
mentored by different people. And not one thing is the right way to do something. I think it's a combination that is combination of different ways of doing things is what makes it right in context. Once again, you're only as a bit of a cliche, but you're only as strong as your weakest member, right? So as you're building a team, you're only going to be as successful as a team by the people that are around you. And if you've got someone who isn't on the ride, isn't on the journey, isn't feeling inspired, isn't feeling like they're supported enough, you guys can only succeed as much as that person is succeeding. I think it's taking that step back, all learning together, knowing that you've all got something to learn and building together as a team. Yeah, because you can't succeed on your own. I should have mentioned that in the question around being an athlete, because I think that's something I definitely learned in that space as well, in terms of working as a team and only being as strong as your weakest member.
What about structure and processes? How important are those in the life of an athlete, but also in the life of a CSM?
Yeah, I'm a massive process person. I love structure. I love process. And I think that's been one of, if I could segment my time better in my day, I would spend more time building out my process at the moment, because that's the other thing in terms of building my team next year at Iris. I want to be able to bring people in with a structure already in place. I think that's the best way I can support a team. When I bring someone in, I don't want them to feel like they're struggling to swim, pardon the pun, when there's no structure there for them. So I'd love to spend more time on building structure, but sometimes that's not the reality, right? Because you still have to be doing the things day to day. Like I'm still trying to implement and build out and improve my sales to success handover process and my onboarding process and build my playbooks around that and be able to train our sales staff into how, because I think they've got responsibility from their side. But then every week I'm still onboarding 2 to 3 new clients. So that can't stop because we're still selling to more people. So I still have to do that while trying to bring process into place. So in terms of implementing it, I think my biggest thing is choosing chunks. So designing the process in theory, end to end, but then choosing the chunks that you can, maybe within a week, you can change this bit here, put that into place, and then test it out over the next week or two with the new clients, and then continue to introduce new chunks of process in until then you've got your new end-to-end that's in place. Because sometimes too much change at once as well is difficult for people.
Looking forward, what do you think CS leaders need to unlearn, and what skills matter most over the next few years?
Yeah, unlearn. I think there's been this continual within customer success because it's been this kind of area that has grown and evolved and changed so much. And it existed in a different way before it was called CS as well. Unlearn the idea of what it is meant to be. And I think some people do that really well, right? But others, as held on to, success is meant to own this thing or be in this lane and do this kind of stuff. And I think it's being a bit more open-minded into the kind of the melding between different areas within a business, because the reality is with AI, and I know buzzword AI, the reality is it is going to play a massive role within businesses, which means there will be a reduced headcount for certain areas and certain things. Teams aren't going to be as big, but the people that are a part of those teams are going to be highly skilled in being able to work with AI. They're going to be highly skilled in their soft skills, which I think are going to be way more important because AI can't replace the soft skills that we have and the ability to understand people and connect with people. That's not going to exist. And then I think it's also the blending of lines with other departments. And I think that's continuing to happen more and more. But as headcount gets reduced slightly, I think it's not going to be product sits here and sales sits here and CS sits here. You're going to have roles that have crossover between these different areas that have shared responsibility that become the conduit between the two, more so than it just being CS that sits in the middle. And yeah, I think that's going to be a bit more of what the outlook looks like. Yeah.
And to wrap things up, I want to ask you if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice at the start of your CS career, what would it be?
Don't say yes as much, but then I don't know. I don't know if I'd be where I am today if I didn't. Yeah, I think be more open to learning more earlier on, I think is the way. I've always been really curious, but being able to try new things and be okay to fail has always been somewhere that I've definitely not done as well. I'll tend to plan and do a lot more in the beginning before I implement. Definitely I've done that a lot better moving forward in my career. But yeah, be able to try new things, take things on board, learn, but implement earlier and be okay to fail because you learn a hell of a lot more from your failures than you do your successes. And yeah, I think that's sometimes it's just as valuable, if not more.
Ellen, this was such a grounded and honest conversation. And I really loved how you connected performance, resilience, and real world execution and showed us what CS leadership, and I would say it's more than CS leadership, it's leadership in general, looks like when things aren't necessarily perfect, where you don't have a dedicated structure in place. So thank you so much for sharing your story and the insights.
Yeah,
And,
no worries. Thank you for having me. I've really appreciated it as well. It's been great.
and to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and mastering customer success.